Hello, everybody, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is May 21st, 2024, and it is a rainy day today. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to a couple of birthdays to two special young ladies in my life. I guess you could say they're both my nieces. So, Amber, technically she's my niece because my mother actually did take custody of my cousin when she was 16, so therefore my cousin's daughter, Amber, is, not only is she my cousin, but she's also technically my niece as well. So, she used to call me her kunkle, her cousin and uncle. So, happy birthday, Amber. I love you. My niece, Emily, this is her birthday today as well. So, happy birthday, sweetheart. I love you. A lot of birthdays that were on this day. Political figures, human rights activists, Nobel Peace Prize winners, lawyers, serial killers. Pretty much just gave you the breakdown of all the historical birthdays today. So we're going to get right into it with 1527. Philip II, he was king of both Spain and Portugal. He was born on this day in 1527. In 1904, Fats Waller, he was an American musician, and with a name like that, I assume I've never heard of him, so I'm not sure, but I assume he was probably really big in the blues scene, quite possible. In R&B, or old school R&B anyway, blues, that sort of thing. I say a lot, I'm sorry. In 1921, here's that Nobel Peace Prize winner. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1975, but he was born in 1921. His name is Andrei Sakharov, and he was a Soviet theoretical physicist and a human rights activist. Really, dude? You are too? Yes, right. Okay, so there's a fire truck coming, and so everyone pulls over. I pull over, and then who happens to pass by me? FedEx, because he can't be bothered to pull over. But then he pulls over right before the fire truck goes by. So that's FedEx, you probably should have a chat with your driver about that. And if I could catch up to him and get the truck number, I'll gladly put it in there so you can be made aware of it. At any rate, 1951, U.S. Senator Al Franken would be born. I'm not a fan of Franken's politics. If you've heard any of my other spiels about politics, you might have a guess as to why. American lawyer and official of what? I'm not sure, it didn't say. Loretta Lynch was born on this day in 1959, and a year later, American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer would be born. And where is Jeffrey Dahmer now? Well, hopefully he got right with the Lord before he met his demise, but something tells me he probably didn't. After all, he was captured, he was convicted, he was sentenced to prison, and my understanding is that they put him in general population, and someone in Gen Pop decided to, send him to his maker. If he's the one I'm thinking of, They utilized a broomstick and put it up an orifice that one should never want to have anything put up there, if I'm remembering right. So that is, unfortunately, that is all the birthdays, and like we end on a bad note there. Oh, how horrible. But then again, here we're going into this day in history, and then we start off with, the demise of an explorer. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. In 1542, Spanish explorer and conquistador Hernando de Soto, he was the guy who discovered, he was the first European to discover the Mississippi River. And, well, he dies on this day, and he is buried in the Mississippi River in present-day Louisiana. Isn't that a comforting thought? We jump forward to 1856, and so there is, it's listed as a little mini Civil War. It takes place in Lawrence, Kansas. I've actually been through there once. It takes place in Lawrence, Kansas. It was, there was a dispute over, of course, the slavery issue. So the Kansas Territory, there was a compromise there about whether it was going to be slave state or free state, what have you. And so a pro-slavery mob attacks, and it was known as, Bleeding Kansas. And this, again, the dispute was over whether or not Kansas was going to be, pro or anti-slavery. Well, a bunch of pro-slavery folks, they attack, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to root out the hotbed of abolitionism. Which during the Civil War there was a lot of fighting in Kansas. It was known as the Western Theater. Ulysses Grant was there. Ulysses S. Grant was in command of the Western Theater over there. In fact, he was recalled from the Western Theater to go confront General Lee later on in the war. So people think that the Civil War actually ended in April of 1865. Well, it didn't, because the war wasn't wrapped up in the Kansas-Missouri area. There was still fighting going on for several more months until, the South lost its momentum when they lost Lee. The South lost its momentum when Jefferson Davis was captured. And at that point, it was like guerrilla tactics. You hear of guys like Quantrill and his boys. They basically become guerrilla fighters, and they just don't want to give up the fight until it was time to give up the fight. That happened in 1856. In 1871, there's another uprising of sorts. The Commune of Paris, they revolted against the French national government under the leadership of Adolphe Thiers, and it was known as Bloody Week, this uprising. And there isn't a whole lot about that. I go to Britannica.com and I just look up these highlights and just kind of give a brief rundown. Otherwise, these videos would be a hell of a lot longer, and nobody wants that. So that happened in 1871. In 10 years later, or excuse me, that happened in, that was 1871. 10 years later in 1881, Clara Barton would found the, what is now known as the American Red Cross. Originally it was the American Association of the Red Cross, and then they rebranded it as American Red Cross, at some point. But she was the founder of the Red Cross as we know it here in the United States. 1932, Amelia Earhart becomes the very first. She becomes the very first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Obviously, Charles Lindbergh was the first one to do that, and that happened on this day as well. But that was gonna be my last highlighted feature, so I'm gonna talk more about that. But yeah, she did the first Atlantic solo flight for a woman on this day in 1932. And 1991, India politician by the name of Rajiv Gandhi. By the way, he served as their prime minister from 1984 to 1989. So on this day, did I say what year that was? On this day in 1991, so it's 2 years after he had been prime minister, he was assassinated by a suicide bomber. I don't know what he did to upset these poor people, but he was killed in a suicide bomb. So it was a political assassination. So in 2017, the Ringling Brothers of Barnum and Bailey Circus, remember we just talked about this the other day, but in 2017 they would give their final performance, what was known as their final performance, due to backlash and protest from animal rights activists, which, okay, y'all are being dumb, right? They're not abusing those animals. Like, you don't abuse your workhorse. It's just dumb. Were they used for entertainment? Sure. Were they being harmed in any way? No, they're actually probably fed pretty damn well. They're probably fed better than the animals in the wild. They're probably fed just as well as animals are in captivity in zoos, right? And if you have a moral obligation or objection to that, then, to each their own. I know that zoos are meant to be a form of conservationism in saving species, although I do have to point out that how can you conserve a species if you are locking them up in captivity? I get that. But at any rate, so Ringling Brothers gives their final performance in 2017. However, they came back in 2023 and they started doing shows again minus all the animals, which I think is kind of dumb because the animals were the biggest attraction to the show. Was seeing the lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, so it was, I guess it's the world we live in where, your feelings are more important than reality. And, again, to each their own, but I mean, that's why we're seeing a systemic downfall of this nation and this world for that matter. We're seeing a decline in what I would say is human evolution, but that's just me. All right, so let's get back to it. It's the year that my grandfather was born. The year is 1927. Charles Lindbergh is the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic. And he flew from New York City to Paris, France. It was a 33.5-hour flight. So he stayed up 33 hours straight to fly across the ocean. I don't know how he did it. There must have been a whole lot of coffee there. So the route that he took is pretty interesting. The route that he took was, okay, if here's New York and here's Paris, he didn't fly straight across, right? So in order to conserve fuel, he flew like a northern arc, which was actually, it was less miles. So it was, because, the plane that he was in, it was just a single prop engine plane. It can only carry so much fuel. Non-stop, it went 33.5 hours, but that northern arc shaved off, not only did it shave off a lot of time, but it shaved off a lot of miles. And so for all you flat earthers out there, right, he understood that the world was round, and he went and picked an arcing point that was, how am I trying to say this? That arcing point got him from point A to point B, but he got there faster, with, traveling less miles than had he just flown straight across from New York to Paris, straight across, because with the curvature of the earth the way it is, it would have been a longer trip to go this way as opposed to going this way. So that was something that he did, and he was very instrumental in being a pioneer in aviation. But he did that on this day in 1927. My grandfather would have been 2 months old. My grandfather was 2 months old when Lindbergh made this epic journey. So, at any rate, that is your May 21st. I'd say that it's a beautiful day, but as you can probably hear the rain on my windshield. You can probably hear my windshields, my windshield wipers, going back and forth. That's been your day for May 21st. And what we're going to do is we will come back again tomorrow, and we will do it all over again for this day in history for May 22nd. So that's it. That is the conclusion. I am out of here because I am headed to work right now. And blessings to you all. Have a blessed day. Take care. And we will chat with you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.